All right, so we waited. I was hoping it would go up on YouTube. I could have watched this live. This is like one of my first days as a full-time creator, and I was able to be here live for Star Citizen Live Mission Features QA. I asked some questions specifically around reputation. I found that to be really important. And in the thread, they had a thread where you can ask questions, stuff like that. And I was really excited for this. I had the opportunity to watch it live. I didn't because I wanted the opportunity to pause it and discuss things with Twitch chat, as well as be able to get my points across or thoughts across without speaking over someone and us missing a good point or something like that for the YouTube video as well. So Star Citizen Live, we're going to check it out, the VOD on Twitch. It just finished. So let's see how this goes, but I am very excited for this. Basically, most of the good content for 3.19 is mission content. Most of the changes that are pretty exciting, I feel, is coming from the mission team. Salvage missions, possible reputation, 320 mining missions or whatever, right? So further along stuff seems really exciting, actually.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. We're back. Star Citizen Live. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee. And this is our weekly live stream where we take about an hour out of the end of our week and we hang out with some of our developers. We talk about the stuff they're working on. Sometimes we answer questions from the community. Sometimes we have somebody on just to get to know them and learn a little bit about their history. Sometimes we do an AI sprint report like we did the last episode a couple weeks ago. And sometimes I don't write an intro and I just wing it.
And you did a good job.
Joining us on the show this week
described
are two
SCL
members
well.
from our esteemed Mission Features team. We've got Ed and Elliot. Elliot, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Yep.
So, you're no strangers to SCL. You're one of the
How's
few
the volume? A little
people
low?
who've actually had a return visit here to the spaceship. We've only been on the spaceship for X number of months.
You see the
now,
background?
so we haven't actually had a lot of people cycle back through. So you're actually, I think you're one of the first people ever to return.
I'm on it 3 times.
Yeah. Well, no, wait. This is Elliot's third time. David, can you confirm that?
Third time.
Oh, never mind. No, bye.
Oh.
Ed,
Ed, can you move to the main
every
chair,
show is
please?
somebody's first show. Let's take a little bit of time before we get into the questions. Introduce yourselves. Tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen. And we'll start with you since you've done it 3 times. So you should be a pro by now. Go ahead.
I'm going to flub it. Hi, I'm Ellie Morby. I am a lead designer on the mission feature team. I make missions and we make systems revolving missions, and me and Ed work together a lot of the time. Yep. That's me. There you go.
And Ed?
Okay, yeah. My name is Edward Fuller, and I am also a lead designer on the mission features team. And obviously, I work alongside Elliot.
Hey, Lola.
And there are other designers who report to us and make missions with us. And yeah, I mean, we'll go into all the details when we get to our questions, I guess.
Gotcha.
And a lot of us were at Bar Citizen in Manchester.
Yeah? How was that? I didn't get to make it.
Really fun. Met a lot of people, met some content creators. Just a really fun environment, and it just helps to motivate you more because people come in, they're like, oh my God, what you do is so cool. Can I have a picture? And you're like, just make video games.
Can I have a picture of the guy who none of his missions work, please? I talked about this earlier. Me and Elliot have a very good relationship, and we pick on each other. And some of his missions work.
Games for a living.
Yeah. That was what? Not last weekend. It was the weekend before that?
Something like that, yeah. I can't remember.
Max?
Drank too much.
None of Max's missions
I've
work.
been here. This is actually day 365 today that I've been here in the UK. So I hit my 1 year tomorrow. And I'd been waiting for a Manchester Bar Citizen. I've been waiting for a Manchester Bar Citizen the entire time here. And they finally do it, and it's when I'm on vacation.
Yeah.
Out of the country. And I'm like...
They waited. They
It
waited
was
until
really
Jared
nice.
went on vacation.
Like, when I was there, I met, when I'm in Twitch chats, there's a person in there all the time called Slough Dog. And I was walking back from the toilets, and this guy looks at me and points, and he's like, Elliot. I was like, oh, hello. And he's like, I'm Slough Dog. I was like, oh my God, hello. Because he also tests on Evo Kati, so we see a lot of his reports, and we speak to him quite a bit as well.
I think most of us who've been to at least 2 Bar Citizens have a story of meeting a backer coming from the bathroom. They're always creative. It's like okay, can I wash my hands first? That's good. I went to the Paris Bar Citizen on my vacation, and that was great. It's the first time in Paris. I met a lot of people. We actually have a couple things added to the set that they were giving.
Slad corners Elliot at the urinal. Let's make a whole story about Slad and make him seem like a bad person.
New coasters
with
the Eiffel Tower and stuff on the Bar Citizen logo, and a goblet back there. All right, so this week's show is a little different than our normal format. This is a community Q&A show. So for this week's show, we put up a thread on Spectrum, and we collected a bunch of questions from our backers, and you guys went through and selected the questions, and were kind enough to send me the list and whatnot. Thank you for including their names. So we're going to read off the names of the people who asked the questions and whatnot. But before we jump in, I want to talk a little bit about what the mission feature team does and doesn't, because that's going to color quite a few of the answers to these. So let's talk about what the mission feature team does first.
What do you do?
Well, mission feature team, we take features made by other teams and we make missions that use them. So we definitely also make the mission system itself, but so it's often the confusion comes is that why haven't you made this mission yet? And the reason is often, well, we don't actually make the features that is the backbone of how that feature of
why are there no cargo missions yet?
Yeah, well, like the bow at the end of the present. Right. Everyone's put wrapping on.
When gameplay teams create salvaging, then you go and you make missions that use salvaging. When they create mining, you go make missions that do mining. One of the questions here from Nine Toes is asking about where's the data running missions, and the answer is when a gameplay team creates data running as a gameplay system, as a loop, then you guys can create missions.
Yeah, because like on that, it'd be sort of.
That's so weird
we
to me.
We could fake it, but what's the point in that? We might as well wait and give you the real, true, intended experience instead of like almost like a garage.
Because we might invent things that
that it's so weird to me because it sounds to me like they don't have people like embedded in their team that make gameplay. So they take, for example, what are the new missions that are coming? They're salvage missions. They took something that's new and made gameplay out, like missions out of it, instead of because like data running feels like it would be almost like a mission exclusive. I guess that's what I'm talking about. It seems like some things would be mission exclusive elements and they don't have anybody to maybe make those mission exclusive type things. I don't know.
The real owner of that feature doesn't necessarily want it to be. So we do two things. We basically mess with expectations of players. We also waste work on us. We annoy people who are also developers. And then in the end result, we have to backpedal all of our work and redo it once they've done the feature, and then we also have egg on our face. So it kind of is a pretty bad way of working. Yeah.
One of the terms we use internally is downstream. You're not as downstream as like audio is. Audio has to wait for everybody to do their stuff before they can get in there, because they, before they make the sound of a ship, they need to see the profile. They need to see how big it is. They need to see how aggressive it looks. They need to see how janky it looks or how slick and smooth it looks. And then they build a profile that matches that. You guys are somewhere in the middle, but still downstream of a lot of other teams, downstream of at least the gameplay. The gameplay design teams. And
I mean, we still make stuff ourselves, and sometimes we own those things, like
losses.
Like people throwing eggs at you because they're mad at you. That's what they
part of our team. Spawn closets is part of our team, which is why it ends up in like a lot of missions.
That's why it works perfectly.
Yeah. So it's perfect for us, but yeah.
So that's our backdoor answer for Nine
why
Toes here.
Spawn classes works perfectly. I think about what 30% of the missions I did today worked.
I think the question was specifically, hey, we've got a Herald, we've got an MSR. Where the heck are our data running missions? That is, when EUPU or whomever does, maybe it's Austin, whomever, gets the data running, gameplay systems up, then you guys will absolutely jump in to make missions.
Yes.
Just the same as you're doing with salvage, just
Absolutely.
like you've done with mining, stuff like that. Okay.
Yep.
So, all right, let's jump into these questions here. Our first one is from Caden. Hi, Caden. Says, will there be more FPS missions besides the generic bunker and cave missions that involve killing every enemy? Maybe something that involves ground vehicles, like a convoy assault. Oh, you snuck a suggestion in there. Who wants to?
Elliot?
Sure. Yes, obviously we're going to want more variety when it comes to FPS missions. When it comes to stuff like convoy of assault, again, with us being like a downstream dependency, it requires things like, AI to be able to drive a convoy if we're assaulting one that's already in process. It comes with other things like, making sure that we have a route set up and we can send you to intercept.
The main one is like trying to enforce,
Yes. Keeping
something
players
with ground vehicles.
Yeah.
A mission with ground vehicles
Yeah.
where we have to say, you have to use a ground vehicle. We have to contrive
Yeah, we have to
why
make sure
you would
you
use
stay in
a
that.
ground vehicle.
You've got ships, just put the ground vehicle on the ship and we do it. It's very difficult.
I mean, that's one of the biggest, like, he just points out one of the biggest issues with Star Citizen ground vehicles, period. Why would you use them? Like, there's a few situations where it makes sense, but most of the situations currently don't, because ships are just better, We've
talked about stuff like having like electrical storms on planets and things like that, but they're feature requests that are in, and when we get the time and scheduling, we'll get to them and we'll be able to do this sort of stuff.
You have to create that scenario.
Some sort of
You have to create a scenario where you cannot fly here. This is a no-fly zone. Ground vehicles.
Situation that goes to the
bunkers.
player, kind of like how we did with Siege, where we go, you can't use your ships. You
Siege,
can only use this method of vehicle to be able to ensure.
And people use their ships and sped the platforms, and it stinks. Jake, thank you, dude.
Sure,
23
That
months.
was our
Thank you
contrivance
so much.
in that scenario to enforce a kind of gameplay scenario we really wanted to achieve.
Yeah.
But as gameplay teams and other feature teams, add things like the electrical storms,
Yes.
like that create situations. Then you won't have to fake a situation.
Yeah, no, you won't,
just-
because it will be a systemic thing, and it will all work as you would expect it to.
Yeah. In Siege, if we took away the no-fly zone, someone will bring a Carrack and just like mow down the entire platform, and
You
then
just drop
land.
bombs on it.
Bomb it, and it'd be so. Having a reason to remove that ability, even though obviously the game is massively about ships, it's about having multiple gameplay styles and catering to everyone.
Yeah, it's about having the
remember
option to
early
use
testing-
vehicles.
A lot of the early testing on Siege, when people were trying, obviously you had the no-fly zone, but people were trying to get up enough speed in their ship, to kind of coast in and even use the ship as a weapon and just like see how many NPCs they could take out with the crash of the ship. So yeah,
We have fun like conversations with that where someone's like, well, what happens if they fly above the platform and drop a tank or a vehicle we don't want on it? And we're like, well, if you can manage to drop a vehicle all that way and manage to just go
it's
for it,
fine.
that's your reward.
Yeah.
Admittedly, until a lot of the physics improvements that are underway work on a lot of our ships kind of just fall and bounce off the ground anyway.
I just want to say one other thing about those ground vehicles is that right now we have AI working on making it so that they will be able to drive those vehicles on the planets and stuff, but it's still obviously possibly some distance from them being competent in both firing and driving. So there are other reasons. We could probably have static vehicles, but you might argue, what's the point? It's not much fun blowing up static vehicles.
I would agree.
Our next question is from E.
I appreciate that openness, letting us know, in case people don't follow the monthly report, what work is in progress. That's quite good. And then also saying, even though that is a work in progress and might become a thing soon, that doesn't mean it's going to be a good mission soon. AI is still problematic, and being open about that is really refreshing and nice.
Eliminator. Lemon is in capitals. What happened to dynamic mission givers? It seems the ones we have need some love, and the ones that were once on the roadmap have never been seen again. What happened to Eddie Parr? I'm not going to ask about Tessa Bannister.
Yes.
when it comes. But what happened to Eddie Farr? What happened to the?
Yeah, so the thing that happened with the Mission Givers is that the team that owned Mission Givers went through some movement around of personnel, and so the ownership kind of fell away a little bit. But the narrative team now own Mission Givers, which makes a lot more sense because, I mean, they design the characters, they write their words, they build their lore, so it makes a lot of sense that they would own it. So they're also building their own designers in the narrative team. So there's actual people who design stuff and make things. So now they also have people to work on them and improve them. So there is definitely a focus on getting them up working.
I think his name was like Matt or something. Is that guy a designer? So like he'll go through the missions and make sure they're like good,
better, and
that's interesting.
Maybe introducing more or improving various things about them. So yeah, they will come back and they will get better.
Yeah, I know. You're part of the. We're in the process of we're still building out our UK office here, and there's still areas that are under construction, which is why we haven't shown you our nice comprehensive tour. We want to wait until it's all done. But
yes,
a lot of the
Matt
artwork has been going
MFT.
up in the last couple of weeks, and a lot of it is based on our great mission givers and whatnot. And so it's actually there's actually this internal sense of we walk past and like, oh gosh, remember this guy? And like, this guy was going to be cool, and oh yeah, Pacheco, she was going to be real cool. It's like there's this movement. Internally, we would really like to get that going, get those back. I know the narrative team has so much intended for these people, including Tessa Bannister.
To add a little bit more to it, the credence to those designers, like the designer working on it is our former embedded QA, he became a designer,
shit.
And he came from our strong stock.
Yeah.
So we trust his abilities to bring the best.
Can never overstate the value of starting in a
I
QA
did not know that.
as a launching pad for almost every discipline.
Pretty much 99% of all developers come from QA, and QA are the backbone, fundamental to every game studio. Mm-hmm. So go QA.
Yeah. Feels good, man.
I
feels strong, man. I should say.
Years ago, So
yeah.
Blizzard. Let's see. Next question. Slothstronaut.
Thank you, Iconic.
I should look at these names.
What a name.
Slothstronaut says, any plans you can share for missions suitable for larger groups or organizations?
They've tried.
Yeah, so the way we think about missions that would be aimed at like
big
large
events?
groups or organizations is
For
that
sure.
We kind of have a sort of a philosophy that the more complex the objectives are, the more they're intended for larger groups. Right now, a lot of our missions are quite simple on their combination of objectives, or the number of objectives you have to do at the same time. Obviously, something like Siege of Orison is a good example of something with multiple things, and the intention there is multiple players play together. However, outside of dynamic events, we want to make sure that we have content that is suitable to divvy up to a crew of players and whatnot. So we're aware that players like this.
I'm very curious about what he's
we
going to say.
demonstrate it in like Xenothreat and Siege, where people play, they do different things, different roles, and so we're aware that there's an appetite. For example, one of our missions that's fairly newly announced, it's on the roadmap now, the data heist mission. Mm-hmm. That one is a mission that a skilled player probably would be able to do on their own, but it's one of these missions that puts a lot of stress on that one player if they were to do it. You've got enemies that you're going to be contending with in the UGS.
Okay.
On top of that, there'll be you're basically uploading data to a handler, like an offsite hacker. And to do that, you basically, I'm losing my train of thought, so you're going to have to take over.
Oh, what with the data heist?
I am losing my train of thought, so you're going to have to take over.
Neither one of us were listening.
I'm
We were just
going
waiting
into
for you
a
to
car
stop
crash
talking.
right now. Yeah. So you've got the guys with the
Enemies.
FPS guys. Then you've got these downloads that can be interrupted. They can be interrupted, and when they're interrupted, someone needs to run around looking for codes to enter to servers to prevent them from being like losing their data. And then you've got to get to them before they overheat, and then you lose the data and you lose the mission. Anyway, point is, single player, is doing a lot of stressful things in one go.
Right.
But a crew of players, like a bunch of players who want to play together and make the most out of that, well-oiled machines, probably going to like work their way through that and have one person doing this, one person doing that, coordinating well. And that mission is clearly designed, probably better to be worked on as a group. And in addition to that, like a mission like that, if we were to make it, and we are making it like that, we would make sure that we'd put a pay, a reward on it that would be meaningful for a group of players. Obviously, single player, great payday, I just did. But you did a lot of work for it.
That's an interesting comment to hear, because every single person that I've ever spoken to from that team, anytime you're like, yo, the reward is just not worth doing with a group, or the reward isn't even worth doing, period. It's always like, nope, wasn't me. So and I think it's such a funny thing to see, because the exploits that happened at, I guess, call it Brio's Breaker Yard or whatever, with the drug running, just shows that if there was value in doing anything, anybody would do even the most boring jobs. Like, nobody cargo hauls, right? But when Slam came around, bro, everybody was cargo hauling. And not nobody, obviously people cargo haul, but people stopped cargo hauling at the levels that they were cargo hauling at for years, because it just got worse in comparisons to everything else, right? And again, I don't think cargo hauling is boring or whatever, right? Like, those are things that I like doing, but you could tell that it's the volume of people doing it has gone down, because the risk versus the reward just never makes sense. And most of the missions don't really have any risk, so the rewards are quite low, but there are, it's just like kind of it's not money that needs to be the reward in a lot of cases, but sometimes it shows that it could be, because Slam was just insane. The problem is it was an insane amount of money. So if there was like ever some purpose behind doing anything, everybody would do everything and the game would just be better.
Yeah.
Whereas a group of players,
that's
you're
so far
working to get the best out of it and not be so stressed, but the payoff is still worth your time. So yeah. It's a consideration.
I hope so. I hope he's right.
Undoubtedly do something in ISC where we, dive deeper and show more of the development of that.
Sorry, I just lost my train of thought. It's one of those things when you're in a live show, it's like, and then you go off a cliff.
It happens all the time. That's how people know it's live.
Yeah.
Oh, go. Is this live?
It's like he's avoiding switching my camera because he doesn't want to show that I'm parched and drinking water. I get thirsty during the show too. It's all part of being live.
I'm quite surprised in that monologue you didn't switch to like an in-scene, in-game of someone looking at a monitor like you did with me. The editing you did on my modular mission thing, where you all did me dirty and everyone's just sat there waiting, looking at the camera and everything. And I'm just and everyone's getting up and walking off, and I'm just sat here like, ugh.
Deserved.
We'll talk. We'll do a little behind the scenes on that though. So we shot Elliot.
Deserved.
First. We're off the track. We'll have to. Well, Bun, you mind if we put a few minutes? Okay, we're good. He says that's fine. We shot Elliot's interview, and he did that. He did that entire explanation, one shot, one take. No interruptions, no anything. If we hadn't cut to the other people, you would have seen that it was a completely uninterrupted take, no teleprompter, no notes offside.
Just went off.
It was awesome.
That's
but while he's doing it, I'm just sitting here like, while he's saying, I'm just imagining the reactions that some backers would have if we put this on there completely uninterrupted. So then he left, and then we brought in Yorit and Lars and everything, and I'm like. After they did their interviews, I'm like, okay, I need you to do some reaction shots for me. And they're like, what? I just need you to look at the camera, and I need you to imagine you're listening to Elliot for about 7 minutes straight, And I didn't have to do any other directing after that. They were just
They're like, I know what this is like.
So no, it was good.
I was watching some some of our Twitch streamers react to it, and I watched Devon Aubrey, I think her name is. And as you were showing like the clips of them going, oh my God, she literally went, oh yeah, this guy goes on a bit, doesn't he? And I was like sat there and chilling, oh my God.
You wanted to do it that way, though.
No.
I wanted to go over, just talk, because I didn't want to like, I just wanted to explain it all. I didn't want to lose anything, cut away. I wanted to have it all complete, you know?
Next question from Xperia. Compared to the number of PvE missions, there are very few PvP missions. Can we expect to see any PvP missions in the future?
Yeah, PvP missions in our game are a bit more of a challenge to do, because it always relies on two people wanting to do the same thing. So what we try to do instead is not give you an objective that's directly like kill Ed.
Yeah, kill.
It's instead we put you in a sort of a mission flow that has.
I'm sorry for pausing here, but I think it's really important because a lot of people have asked this specific question, and this is sort of what Xperia was talking about, was the idea of we have bounty missions, right? So there's bounty missions where, stop pogoing me, I'll pause when I want to, okay? It was just live, you could have watched it. The idea of you have bounty missions, players do a lot of lawful bounties. Can we get an assassination mission on those players as unlawful players? And they feel that they don't want a player being punished for doing like the right things, and it needs to be more of like an agreed upon situation in those types of situations where, okay, I know there's risk here, right? And that's they had explained this plenty of times before, right? Is like, should you really get a god marker on you for doing a bunch of bounties? Probably not. Doesn't really make sense. So the idea of it being more of a buy-in from both players in assassination type scenarios, I think makes a lot more sense as well. He finally explained it the way I've heard it before, but could never think of
vulnerability to where the player can do these sort of acts. Like, for example, Jump Town. We only want you to deliver maze. Whatever bloodthirsty murdering you do is strictly on you as a person. And your choice there. So
plenty of people congregate that, and you know, that's fine.
So our intention is to put you in a situation that allows you to take advantage and think, right, well, if I kill this person, I could come out on top. You know, the risk versus reward. So that's sort of things we're trying to do.
A call to harm mission would be cool, though.
We have other things in the pipeline that are going to also try to pull this gameplay in with the new resource rush stuff, the asteroid mining we've talked about. That is an open area where people will go in and fight. Same sort of thing. We're not going to tell you to kill anyone, but if you want the high profits, you're probably going to do it.
Risk,
so don't get away.
There's reward.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's always the classic, one mission to one group of people that says, go here and do this.
I do like the idea of a call to harm mission where you're maybe gaining some sort of rep with the Ninetales or whatever by killing lawful players, and maybe one day we'll be able to see players' reputation with Crusader security, let's say. And if you come across somebody with a high Crusader security rep, then your rep with the Ninetales will go up significantly if you end up taking them out, right? That would be really cool. And they maybe do have the ability to do that with everything they have now.
The thing, and then a mission to another group of people that says, maybe go to the same place and do something else.
Like what?
Exactly. Yeah.
If it was a delivery mission, we sent you after the same box, both of you. One of you is gonna win.
Yeah. There was this kid in elementary school named Billy Escobar that used to dig a hole in the playground. And he would go and he would gather red ants from a mound and move the red ants and then go and gather black ants and put them in there and watch them just fight.
Now, what a psychopath.
Yeah. Billy Escobar. I don't know where you are, but...
His cousin was Pablo.
No. Virgil See, we go off on tangents.
Oh my God, a Virgil
says, with
question?
the new ship components being physicalized for 319, some of them, with the tractor beam gameplay, is there any plan for rare ship components to be loot rewards for ground missions?
Well, we wouldn't do it that way per se. Like your missions coming up, the salvage ones.
Okay. Elliot's like making a face like, don't say it.
Is it salvage or is it the
I mean, salvage ones, you take them off, yeah.
Yeah, salvage ones you could take
So there's something happening here. There's a little something in the works.
them off, yeah. Yeah, so in which case, I guess the way that we probably would do this is we treat the Rex as effectively like a loot box, so its loadout is potentially good. It's potentially got cool and interesting components on it. So if you happen to be salvaging this ship that we've spawned for you, and it's good, well, your reward is in the cool stuff you find, isn't it? So I think we do it that way rather than, let's say, here's your reward for completing this mission, and here's a component. I mean, yeah. So that's how I think we think about it.
You make a
Really.
good point.
What about reputation?
That's a lot of games. You'll get the mission, and then in the rewards thing, like there's an item attached, and that's the mission reward loot. Nothing. We don't necessarily do that.
Boring.
We like to use our missions to set up situations.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. It's also unrealistic, right? Like the end of the mission reward, something just magically appears in your inventory. So that would be like so un-Star Citizen like as well.
And then. If
I know they answered my question,
are
Jake.
Proactive in that situation.
Everybody came here and started yelling at me.
And you do the little extra due diligence and you search something.
Yeah.
We provide opportunities for you to discover
try.
other things. But I can't think of a single, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I can't think of a single mission in our game that's specifically go and do this and I'm going to give you this item as a reward. We don't have one of those?
We don't do item rewards at the moment, so no. But
again, that's not to say that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said at the moment because you have to. You have to. There has to be the ability to get something cool in a mission. Like, there's no way that we're not doing missions that have cool rewards at the end of them, in the middle of them, whatever, right? At some point.
We've learned never to say never here, but it's just at the moment, that's not really the direction.
I think a good point on
Jake,
what Ed was saying is that, like, I've said this in multiple Twitch chats and on a few different things, so I guess good to say here and put it all in one place is that when it comes to salvage, your main thing you'll do is hull scraping. However, now with the item port detaching, you can take the guns off and the components and sell them. Not only that, we populate the cargo hold with random assortments of cargo. So there's extra value
random
in there.
or a bit more chosen to be a bit more interesting to you.
We play with it. So you could.
Okay, that's really cool. So there's 3 ways to make money at these things. And then maybe the really valuable ones have the really valuable cargo on it as well.
Go do a ship, you can scrape all of it, take all its guns in, and then go into the hold and it's full of like
something worth it.
Something that's incredibly expensive. So what goes from being, I've just hull scraped this entire ship and got 500,000 UEC becomes, a 2.2 million payout because of the items on the ship and the cargo hold.
Yeah. This. It's time to live my life as a salvager on the Canterbury. Exactly, dude. That's actually really exciting. Now, fix selling, please. Please.
This is where I want to do my little disclaimer here that the 500,000 and the...
Oh, yeah, these numbers are just...
Those are numbers, like, I don't know where in Elliot's brain those came from, but that does not represent specific economics and stuff before you go and make your comments on...
We all know there's no economy.
No.
You don't want me to do the Reddit thing?
Tom's working on something. I haven't seen it yet, but Tom's working on something that he's told me is called the Reclaimer Disclaimer. And I haven't seen it, and I don't know what it's going to be, but eventually it'll show up. That would have been a good time for it. And see, he's back there going, oh, if I had only had it set up right now, that would have been a good time for it.
I was gonna do that. No Reddit. That's just an example. Let it pass.
Anuline says, will missions eventually move away from the Moby-Glass app and be more focused on other means of accepting them, such as the mission givers themselves or interactable terminals and stuff like that?
Yeah, we would like in the future the way that you obtain missions to be a slightly more personable experience. But at the end of the day, you're not really ever going to get away from a scenario where you are using your mobiGlas to read mission descriptions or see the objectives or even accept them. But accepting, I mean, when you go to like Eckhart, when you sit down with him, you do a little chit chat. You still bring up your mobiGlas to accept that mission. So this aspect isn't going to go. However, so that's always going to be there, but there may be other ways that we want to do it. One way that the narrative team and some other designers want to go for is a sort of like sort of simple mission giver, a sort of mission giver light, which isn't quite as like elaborate as something like Eckhart. But it would be like something where you have a sort of generic NPC, like someone you just meet on the street who wants to do an errand, and they would say, "Hey, I want you," and then I mean, don't know what the lines are going to be, and they're probably quite simple lines, but you would then go over to them, you'd have a simpler interact with them, but then they'd offer you a mission, you take their errand or their mission or their quest or whatever it is, and you go and do it, and so that would be a more organic. Rather than going to the mission giver in the bar, it would be like walking down the street and catching up and hearing something and getting involved with someone's business in a nice way.
Definitely more, institutional.
That's so exciting. That is so like every game with quests that you've ever played, right? And we just don't have that. You don't just walk up to anybody and they give you something now.
Situation, more diegetic situation.
Yeah.
Although we're never going to get away from the mobiGlas.
mobiGlas is the core of the
It's
system.
like our mobile phones today. It's
Yeah,
try to live life without one right now. I mean, it's possible, but I mean, not a world I'd like to live in.
Me neither. I love my phone.
Driftwood Badger.
That's the one. I love that name.
The Driftwood. What
Driftwood Badger. I have no clue.
So that's just
It's
like a wooden badger, like a badger that's already made, like carved out of driftwood.
Or it could be
is
a badger
it- or
who
is it-
lives on driftwood.
Or is it a living badger that just feeds on driftwood?
It's an amazing name. I love
You in
it.
the chat? Let us
That's
know.
a really good name.
Driftwood Badger has a question that's actually near and dear to my heart. I've given Dave Haddock some crap for this in the past. It was discussed a couple years ago on video about how all the mission givers, this was me, he's talking about me because I called him out on it. All the mission givers in the universe are mostly all criminals and scumbags, or
Yeah.
at least very morally gray. That still seems to be the case. What are the plans for giving non-criminals some mission givers that don't make them want to take a long, hot shower after? What can I say?
Can't remember.
Dave Haddock is shady AF. That's all I can say. No, it's just how it ended up. It's just when we talked about. It's really the same answer we talked about on the video a couple years ago. It's just it was we had all the legal things. Tessa was still in the universe at the time. It's like well, we wanted to start putting in some of that morally gray. So those became the focus. Those became the first things. And then, as you already answered earlier in the day, the mission giver team kind of got rearranged and stuff, and that lost some priority. And now that it's back with narrative, that's
I'm really excited to see what they do.
Again. It's also really dependent on the character team and really dependent on the animation team because the mission giver requires way more animation work than any other NPC.
Team because they have a unique location.
Exactly. So it's just a lot of things that you have to come together to do them and stuff like this. But there's a list. The best I can offer is that there's a list internally. I've seen it. There are more mission givers that aren't scumbags and that aren't just aren't Clovis, Darneely, and stuff like that.
No, there's
Clovis is one.
I mean, they're not in the game yet. But
Exactly. But
there's some from Crusader.
One-legged
who are-
at
like-
Delamar
I'm
was...
pretty sure they're supposed to be like security.
Yep.
You've got them there.
She was my
Their
favorite
name-
too.
Yeah,
unless you don't want to read it out.
But
Recco
Batista.
Battaglia.
Batista and Gibbs.
Yep.
And Gibbs, there we go. I remembered the Batista, but I forgot the Gibbs. So they're like they're two people. They're like a mission giver of two people, which is a new thing, which is partly probably why they're not in the game yet. So there's another challenge for us. So they head up like Crusader security, and they would be offering security missions. And of course, there's Tessa Bannister, who isn't in the game at the moment, but she will be coming back. And
She should be the new Imperator.
pardon?
She
No,
should be the
she-
new
no,
Imperator.
no.
Reading
True.
Twitch
She's-
chat. That's not.
She's
a
not
real-
jaded enough to be that sort of person.
provocative.
Not really. Or provocative.
No, but no. That's just.
The thing about Rekko is Rekko Battaglia was the most cursed NPC that we've ever had, though. Do you guys remember her head would spin around and like just limbs would be like all morphed? Like, yeah, it was like poltergeist stuff. It was crazy. She was cursed, dude. You walked up to her hoping the mission would work. Sometimes it would work, but you would always get the most insane experience possible.
Let's wrap this question up by saying there are a number of mission givers.
Yes.
They've already had their PCAP recorded. They've already had their voiceovers done years ago.
Really?
It's just waiting for that confluence of AI, of character art, of animation, of location, all that stuff that comes together that has to
Wow,
pull
I didn't
one.
know they were all like recorded.
Just on
There is
things that
also
they
another
need.
aspect, which is we don't want to put out more mission givers where they don't have missions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Fair.
Content.
So
Fair.
it's kind of like we've already done that. We don't want to do more of that.
Yeah, you want to do more like assassinate missions with the same with all these new mission givers?
Dirty
Of course
Merc
not.
Says, do we have a path when a mission fails due to circumstances that are out of our control, like a server or no spawns or item delivery despawn, to redo the mission without incurring a negative reputation? This is a good question.
They used to
job,
not
Dirty
give
Merc.
out negative rep.
So the thing is, if we would be able to detect if
They used to just not give negative reputation when a mission failed because they just owned the fact that they have no control over the server being garbage, right? So you would only gain positive rep. This was in some missions, by the way. Yeah, like bounties always did it that way, right? And then all the other ones, they don't really do it for some reason. Elliot's here. I don't know if they're going to answer it on the video. So if not, can you respond as to like why? Maybe
if one of these bad things had happened, we would have modified the mission such that it would be a fix and you would never see it happen. Of course, it still happens because we know it happens. And in the case specifically with reputation, and the reputation hit because, of course, reputation is progression to get new missions and whatnot.
Yeah.
We do and have selectively in the past decided we're going to remove this negative hit on a fail. But the problem is, if you do it everywhere, you bury bugs. And we don't want to bury bugs. We don't want to ruin your day either, but at the same time, we need to figure out.
I accept.
Some things are within our, some things are within the wheelhouse of what missions can fix, and some things are outside of what missions can fix. But we still can't just we turn that off and then we never really improve it as a system. We never even fix it as a system. So it's not that we're vindictive or anything. We just want to make it better. And sometimes we need to find the bug, and sometimes it's really hard to find the bug.
Yeah. Now you make a good point.
I accept.
It's workarounds not only don't solve the problem, but
No,
sometimes
they bury
can
it.
Exasperate and prolong the existence.
Yeah, it could be
of the
further
problem.
down the line when suddenly a few missions are using it and it's like, oh, it's broken, so we turn it off. Then suddenly the load of designers go and implement something and they put it across loads of missions and they turn it all on and it all breaks. And then you're like, oh no, we didn't fix the thing that was underlying that, that would be very bad. Yeah. So whilst we have less missions, we want to fix them before you get loads and then they've all got the bug in it, So.
Yeah.
Yellowmerk, with salvaging and mining it in missions, are there any plans for refueling missions for players who maybe
good
own
question.
stuff there?
Oh, right. Yeah, that was on mine. So refueling, it's been with us for quite a while now, but
it has.
It is still a player-on-player mechanic.
Yeah.
When
it doesn't have
refueling
to be.
was first being designed, there was an effort from AI had priority to be looking at ways for AI to reciprocate and be the refueled.
Right.
And then, shifting of priorities and people moving around and refueling changed a lot, came out.
Galactica,
and
what's
the
up?
prototype work of what refueling is for an AI didn't maintain to be matched with. Right now, priorities for AI don't put them in alignment with working on that particular feature to bring up. So basically, AI designers and AI engineers would need to come back and look at that particular behavior.
Let me fix it.
For them to cooperate with a player, refueling them, and then and then it would be possible. But once they make a behavior, then it would be something that I think we'd probably put in like service beacons. So it'd be a spoofed NPC beacon where they ask for refueling and you refuel them. And then after that, it would actually be something that we could put in a mission because we could make a module around it. Yeah. But you see how we are downstream of something, of a downstream of a
devs
sort of
have it, so they stick out in chat. So there's a few here.
It's not like no one's thought about
Jake's here, Elliot's here,
there's also
Layers.
Lars.
A problem where you generally want to prioritize work that affects the largest percentage of people, and not everybody owns a refueling ship. In fact, probably most players don't. So that becomes kind of a niche. But the chicken and the egg thing.
Yeah, but the people who do want things to do with it, and I think the reason that they ask about the refueling ship is like player versus player refueling it's not really a thing right now. They keep saying that it's like a pyro thing down the line, and it would be sick to have missions where you did it. Like, what if you just had to refuel a location? Yeah, like I kind of like use it as a tanker instead. That's how I would go about it in the short term, because like just take the state of the game, of like variety or whatever, and I mean just take the state of refueling. It was such a good gameplay implementation. It really was, and it just doesn't have its use case yet, and it's so sad because it deserves so much love. It was one of the best things that they've done in all the years of Star Citizen, as far as like UI, player interaction, and just like nothing from the game's economy supported it being a thing, and it just totally sucked. And yeah, to like give anything, shut up, Elliot, to give anything, any variety there for players to use that ship would be amazing. Like just avoid AI for the moment and use it as a tanker situation. I mean, anybody who lives in South Florida knows how important gas tankers are, getting stuff from a port to a place to refuel. Right?
Well, if you made missions for it, then maybe more people would get refueling ships. So it's hard to balance that too.
We haven't had fuel here for a week and a half.
We got time for two more before we bring in our next guest here. Nine Toes since we kind of skipped Nine Toes' question before. Here's another one from Nine Toes. Any plans for larger cargo hauling missions?
Yeah. I've spoke about this multiple times. Big fan of
from the flooding.
Missions. I spend a lot of my time on Euro Truck Simulator too.
Nice. Elliot loves deliveries.
Yeah, I love big cargo missions. But one of the fundamental pieces we need, because I don't want to give you cargo missions where you go up, click a terminal, it spawns in your ship. I'd prefer the flow to be nice. What I'd like, right? So cargo elevators. I want you to have
cargo elevators, timers, all of it.
In the future, pay someone to move the boxes for you. And I want that to feel like you are a delivery man who's loading your truck full of goods, going from A to B, maybe getting pirated, getting there.
You don't always have to be pirated.
Don't always. Maybe. It's maybe. That's just an example, Reddit. And then taking your boxes to the drop off.
Oh, thank you for giving us that.
I want a full, proper mission flow that makes you feel like a delivery man.
Yeah. And for those who follow the public roadmap, not the release view, the progress view, you'll see that freight elevators are in development, whatever. I've seen some internal reviews and stuff. The elevator opens up, and there's a whole bunch of crap, and it's like I got to get this into my ship, and and they're all prototyping different ways of moving the things, either by the hand tractor beam or by carts and stuff like this. So it's all being worked out when it's farther along, and we're more confident in the exact approach we're going to take. That's when we'll show it to you. They're still kind of blue skying a couple of things, how best to move things from the elevator into their ships.
It goes into the whole thing of we could fudge it and make it all right, but we want to our key focus is fun in the verse. So we want to make things that are polished, that we think are going to be fun and that players enjoy.
How much more fun will it be when we have that?
To some degree fun, so we would be stepping on their toes.
Yeah,
it'd be very silly for us.
Let's see. Last question before we bring on our next guest, SaltEMike.
Oh God!
Man, you managed to squeeze one in here for SaltEMike. Again, I want to state that I did not pick these questions. These guys picked these questions this week. would not have been a SaltEMike question.
Again, you mother.
Salty.
I don't know. I just
Yeah, I know, but which one?
Oh, I don't know.
well, quite a few.
I just default into giving him so
I
much.
only asked
It's
one.
the one that's marked.
I took him to Germany once. It was a thing.
Yeah, it was
you know-
fun. Best time of my life. One of the best times.
In a recent monthly report, it states the team has now taken over Reputation. What are the plans for the near future with expanding Reputation for players in the game?
Okay. Yes. Reputation. Yeah, we've taken it over from USPU.
I don't know how
and
far out it is, though.
There's a few things that we're focusing on, and one of the most important parts we think we need to get out is reputation-based hostility. So we want it so that you can do missions for like the Ninetales in the verse, and when you do these missions, you gain reputation, and you can gain reputation to a point where you're allowed at their outposts because you're friends with them.
And you're not hostile.
You could be doing Siege of Horizon, and they won't shoot you because they think you're friends.
Yeah.
But then what needs to come pretty much at the same time or directly after that
is the opposite.
like sandbox reputation hooks. So these are things like if I shoot Ed, my reputation with Luke.
Ed.
Yeah,
Always
you're
shoot
right
Ed.
next to me.
It could be Jared.
If I shoot Jared, my reputation with the entire community goes down.
Apologize when you win.
I know, right? Yeah.
Sorry.
But your reputation goes down. If you shoot Ninetales, your reputation would decrease with them, and if you keep shooting them, they're gonna start hating you. So even though you could start,
It's not just shooting. It could be
these destroying their ships
really,
or anything. Yeah, we just want like ways of going like the player's done this. It's against this faction, this reputation. So this reputation has allies of these people, so it's also going to a little bit affect them, but they're hated by these, so these people are going to get a positive outcome from your one action.
They've described this before. It's been on the roadmap at some point as long-term reputation is how I understood that's what this was, and love it. I would like to see better reputation-based rewards that aren't just money. Unlocking the ability to buy things, stuff like that. But if this is the first thing, this is probably almost definitely the most important thing for the entire game to move forward. I think why wouldn't this be the number one priority? This is like one of the single most important things that this game could possibly have, right? Now they always talk about your choices mattering. This is like the first thing that it really that makes that concrete. Like, oh, everyone's just a griefer. No, nobody's just a griefer, right? They're just bored or whatever. Like, this determines who the griefers are and who aren't, in a lot of ways, right? Because people aren't going to want to risk their long-term rep for just being an idiot in the game because they're bored, right? Things like that. It's so important.
Yeah.
It's wild.
So we want to have, we're focusing on getting those because we think that's going to make the universe feel more alive and
100%.
more influenced by your actions as a player, especially like being able to do missions for.
And I cannot believe not a single person asked a question about reputation in that thread. Not a single one. When it like think about what he just said and how important that is versus are we going to get missions with like convoys, right? And and that was like the one at the top, and it was just like the biggest Picard palm I've ever seen in my life.
Ninetales will allow criminal players to live that life.
Yeah, because I think that's why
probably
we
Father's
chose
Game,
not to do reputation for Ninetales
Yes.
up till now, because it creates this problem where we go, yeah, but
It does,
wait a minute,
Jay,
you do
big
these
time.
missions for
So
Ninetales and they're
someone
supposed to
owns it.
like you, yet you still get missions to murder them, and you can murder them all, and yet they still give you missions. And because there's no connection between those two things, it's where it all comes apart.
Yeah.
So we don't want to expose that obvious fault, but we want to after this particular feature work.
Reputation is a very important system to us.
Yeah, we know they're supposed to underpin everything, so, well, many things.
So there you go, Mike. Now stop asking.
I will. I've
It is
been
entirely
bothering him
possible to
forever.
want to murder somebody that you like.
It's too important to not
I've done
ask.
it really.
Yeah,
before.
of course, you like them. They might not like you anymore.
I will stop asking.
All right, so
I'm gonna ask when it's done. I'm gonna ask when it's done.
Oh, Ed, Elliot, thank you so much for hanging out, for taking the time, for agreeing to be on the show this week, and for going through, pulling your own questions, stuff like this. It's like this was one of the easiest shows I've ever had to do. I just kind of left it with you guys. And
They
whatnot,
should pull their own questions. I like that.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh my God, he just did it too.
Is that when you end the show?
No, I forgot where I was going with that. I just went.
Yeah.
It was easy. You just showed
Anyway,
up.
we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll be back with technical director of UI technology,
UI.
Technical director of UI technology.
Yeah, that was
Mr. Gill. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Nice. And I have the ability to go like this.
Somebody in the chat
There we go.
was like, they should do a CIG dunk tank at CitizenCon.
Absolutely.
And I don't hate the idea. Maybe it's just because I'm really hot in here right now. Like a dunk tank sounds like a good idea. That was a look
That's a great
at the
idea.
new Lorville, scheduled to make its arrival into the persistent universe in Alpha 319.
Is Zane
And you'll be
still the
learning
company? I
even
don't know.
more and seeing a lot more of it in next week's ISC. So stay tuned for that. For the second half of the show, before we get to our next guest, I want to do a little show and tell. I'd like to highlight some of the things that make up our only constant here.
Zane still works there. Okay, cool.
This week, I would like to highlight one of my absolute favorites. This is a scale replica
Whoa.
of the Parasite helmet. This way, there we go.
I've never
Of the
seen that
Parasite
on the
helmet,
shelf anywhere.
made by Star Citizen backer Mighty Heidi. I commissioned this from her, and this just arrived here. If you've never seen this before, this is a subscriber item that goes back to my time. I ran the subscriber program for like a year in 2018 or 2019 or something like that. This is one of
That's
the items that I
wild.
commissioned and had added to the game. And the helmets in the game, the eye, it moves with the face tracking
Yep.
and stuff. This one doesn't. But yeah, so check that out. That's available in the subscriber store, the in-game one, not this one. This is a special one of kind.
That's just for you.
Made for me by, again, Star Citizen Mighty Heidi. Shout out to them. I'm just gonna put that right here for the rest of the show.
Nice.
Right there. Look at that.
Not creepy at all.
Yeah. Our next guest is technical director of UI technology. Is that what we decided?
Yep.
Okay. Newly promoted. Just
Yeah, I can't get it right.
just last week. David Gill. Dave, how you doing?
How you doing?
I've never called you Dave in my life. It sounded wrong when I said it. Most people, you have a nickname. Occasionally, there's a person in game dev who has a nickname that's completely separate from their name. It's not Dave. You have a nickname. Do you want to share that, or should we not share that with people?
No, you can share that. Yeah, even my parents call it me, so
Really?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Your nickname is Bone.
it is. Yeah,
Nice.
it isn't the coolest nickname in the world, but you know,
What? That
you
nickname
don't
is
get to choose your
badass. What do you
nickname. That's the
mean?
rule, right?
Yeah. Now, before we started the first half, Elliot and I were talking about how he had heard a story about he had heard two different stories about how you got that name. And I had said, I'd never heard a story. I'd never even asked. I preferred the mystery. But since we brought it up, where did this nickname come from?
That's such a good name.
It's something as straighthtroughard as I'm quite thin.
Oh my God, he's so skinny they call him Bone.
That's not broadcastable. No.
It just got broadcasted. Oh my God.
It's a good thing Elliot's not mic'd back there anymore. Bone, this is your first time on the
Jesus
live show in quite a few
Christ.
years, at least the first time in the spaceship here. Tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
Well, as you pointed out, newly promoted, but I'm the guy that makes. I'm a game coder essentially at heart, but I'm a coder that writes the stuff that allows people to make UI. So I don't actually make the UIs. I make the things that make the UIs. I'm a bit like a tools programmer.
So did he do all the really cool stuff that we saw on that ISC that one time that they just showed it and never talked about it again?
Or an engine programmer, that kind of direction.
You have one thing that you've made that's famous within the Star Citizen community. Everybody should know this. But although we haven't talked about it in a while, for a while there we were talking about it almost every single week. Building blocks.
Yes,
So you're one of the key people responsible for building blocks.
yes, that's my baby.
Okay.
So yes,
Sick.
I'm responsible for making it, but also responsible for keeping it working as well. So.
Poor guy.
They're not. It's like, yeah, it's one thing to make something, but in a game that's still in active development, keeping it working is almost as much work, if not more, than making it the first time.
Well, it's actually developing it as well, so it's getting better each quarter, and like providing better tools and more interesting stuff for designers and for engineers, so they can make better UIs. So the whole thing is never really standing still. It's always in development. So
Cool.
Like, fundamentally, it works now, and now we're like trying to.
Have we ever
improve it
seen
and
this guy on
improve the
camera
tools,
before?
'cause the faster people can prototype and make stuff, the better UIs you end up having. Better UIs, the better the features you have. So.
I feel like we've seen him before.
Your title before you got
IC.
promoted,
Yeah.
it was
Senior principal engineer.
senior principal engineer. The engineer and programmer are sometimes interchangeable.
Yeah, or coder even.
I notice in the UK here that they use engineer a lot more than programmer. In the States, they tend to use programmer. We once intend. When I was first starting here, and I was like, hey, I'm going to do a thing about how the difference between engineers and programmers and whatnot. And then
And they're
everybody's
like
just
they're the same thing.
it's just cultural. It's the same thing. I'm like, well, that's a really short segment. So we never did that. But in your new role as technical director, do you have a sense of what those responsibilities are going to be?
Yes. Well, there's
I was going to say before we get into this, I want to say when I say new, I mean the email went out this week. Like it's
Oh, wow,
really new.
okay.
When I
Well,
booked him,
congratulations,
he was still
Bones.
the UI engineer. So congratulations, by the way. But that's why I want to say, do you have a sense yet of what the new responsibilities are going to be?
So it's really about tooling at the moment. We do have tools for making the UI, but they're not very user friendly. The two guys that we were on previously would definitely attest to this. So
There's a promotion
we want something that's
season?
definitely more designer friendly, definitely more artistically friendly as well. So. And it's a complicated business because Chris is really into very 3D UIs, and we've all seen the stuff that Zane produces, which is awesome. But he's extremely technical, and what we want to do is kind of lower the bar, so we don't need extremely technical people. Like anyone can pick it up and make cool-looking stuff. You know, you still need artistic ability and understand UX, but at the same time, we want to make this really achievable for
More people than just
the broad range of designers and artists.
I want to follow up on that so that it's not misconstrued and whatnot. It's when we say we want to make it more broadly available, we want to make it, that is because we are as a company, as a team, fast approaching, if not, we've already passed over 1,000 people. And more than half of them, game developers and stuff. That 1,000 includes everybody, our office staff, the studio management, stuff like this. But there's a lot of developers here, all with varying levels of technical abilities. So like this. If everybody could program UI, everybody would. It's one. So making these things accessible is super important. It's not about, well, let's not hire people who aren't technically proficient.
No.
You hire people who have their proficiency here and have their proficiency here and have their proficiency here. But you want to build a thing that doesn't require them to also have a UI programming proficiency, so that you can spread this out. That's how we
Jay
hit this at
explained.
scale.
But also,
We were just hit with it.
Just do stuff quicker. Like if you can try stuff out and go, not quite so sure, and then try some other things out, and you're not struggling with the tools, and you're not struggling to author stuff, and you just go, blop, 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 here's some things, right, yeah, that really suits my feature, and you can move on really quickly, and can produce.
I'll never get over
more.
that emote.
You can produce more
It's
work
so good.
if you've got better tools. It's like trying to build a house with a tiny trowel or something. No, you want some heavy machinery that can build this stuff together. So the better the tools, the better people can work, and it frees them up to do more creative stuff rather than just screaming at their computers going, these damn building blocks.
Now for the second half of the show here, the second part of the show, I like to delve a little more into the personal stuff. We've talked more about work stuff than we traditionally do with our second guests.
Which
One of the
I
areas
enjoyed. That's me.
We're
I
not going to have
prefer
time
that.
to like go through your whole life story or whatnot, unfortunately, but we'll have you back. One of the areas that we first connected is you obviously have a deep and abiding love of video games.
Oh, yeah.
And its history. I think the first time we ever talked was because we were in one of those big meetings where there's 100 people, and we're all, and in the background of your camera, there were stand-up arcade machines. There was one in particular. Do you remember the first arcade machine? I sent you the message. I'd never talked to you before, and I'm like, dude, you have an actual freestanding arcade game in the back, and I can't remember what it was right now.
I have a Miss Pac-Man and Gallagher machine.
It was Gallagher.
Yeah, Gallagher machine, yeah. And then a 2-player Street Fighter, 6-button Street Fighter machine as well. But
Nice.
yeah, I'm a big fan of, especially the sort of mid-90s stuff. I think that's really cool.
And you've worked in game dev for a while now.
Yeah, and by this June it'll be 30 years.
30 years in the game
Whoa.
industry. So one of the things
That's
I want to make
passion.
sure that I don't get to talk to a whole lot of people who've been around as long as I have. Most of the people I talk to are.
I just left the casino industry after 15 years, and it felt like a lifetime. 30? That's double my time. Oh my god.
Young, like Elliot. What? so one of the
Yeah, I'm
one
excited.
of the common game development things that
wild.
we don't ever get to talk
Tomorrow
about
it'll feel real.
is
It's like
the
Saturday.
canceled game. The games that disappear. Every game developer has a resume with gaps where it's where it just looks like they didn't do anything for a year or 2 years because they were working on a project that didn't survive, but it's NDA'd. It was never announced or whatnot like this. One of the ones that I know you were working on, I really want to talk about it. You were working on an ET game.
Yes, not the ET game that everyone.
Yeah, not
heard
not the
about.
infamous
I'm not-
Atari one.
I'm not that old. There was a 20th anniversary of the film. So the film came out in
1982.
1982. So we were due for release in 2002, and we were doing a GameCube PS2. What amounted to do a gardening game. So, ET would fly to a planet and he would pick up some seeds and then he would bring them to his spaceship and he would cultivate these seeds and then he could cross-pollinate them with other. It's sort of a bit like Pokemon, but with plants.
Okay.
It was odd. He's an odd character anyway. I think most people are not really aware of ET's abilities or maybe.
I'm
his
very
lack
aware of
ability.
ET's abilities.
But he's a interstellar gardener, which is not the first thing you'd pick as a character for a video game. But we had some really
Why not?
creative game designers that come up with a cool idea, and it was a really interesting game.
We can actually get wheat
Then our
with
publisher
ET,
was like,
exactly.
right, can we add a bit more than this just gardening bit? So when we got to these planets, we would have puzzly sort of platform section.
I found the artwork. Can we zoom in on that? It had artwork.
Search for
It had artwork and everything, so it
Dracora.
obviously got kind of close.
It was finished.
It was finished.
We finished it.
And it never released.
Never released.
What?
And unfortunately, it came around at
How does that happen?
it ended the company that I was working for as well. So because of the way the contracts worked out, so it was really unfortunate because.
Dude, that's like that Wingman game bullshit, right? Where the dude's game's done, and then they're getting into some legal battle over some crap, and then nobody gets to play the game. Yeah, Descent Underground or something, right? They can't call it Descent anymore or something. It's going through a whole thing, and it's just in hell. That sucks, man. That's so stupid.
We did it at the time. I did lots and lots of crunch, got it to completion, and then they go, "Yep, it's not worth releasing."
Now it's I'm excited to tell you, some of the folks who are watching this either live on Twitch or on the YouTube replay might wonder why we're talking about this. It's often perceived like ISC and SCL are marketing tools and whatnot. I'm sure they certainly have that role, but I always try to attack both of them as education on the process of game development itself. And I've been excited to have you on this because there's this aspect of of the story of game development, not ours, but in general, thing where you can work on a thing all the way to completion. And it can still, like, Ed is back there, nodding. He's like, yeah, this happens. Like all of us have been to a game dev mixer and met somebody, know somebody. If it's not happened to us, we know somebody who has spent years and working on something that never, that never saw the light of day. And it's one of the really awesome aspects of Star Citizen because we're out. It's like you can play our stuff while we're building it like this. So we don't have to, we
Star Citizen, guys, it's out.
Chose a model where we don't have to worry about that, but that story, that aspect of game development is an educational one that I've wanted to share and to discuss with folks.
We're out, baby! It's released.
We're almost
Let's
out of
go.
Time, but did you? It's been 20 years. The company's out of business, and I'm sure the NDA probably doesn't apply. Did you bring it?
I may have sneaked out.
Did you bring it?
I do have the copy.
Yo, that's wild.
Look at this. Look at this. Give me my zoom in. Look at this. This is just a burn CDR. This is the ET game.
This is the copy. I think that's the only copy in the world.
This might be the only copy in the world.
That's also the PS2 one, which is kind of strange. But yeah, this
is the PS2
I think it's
version?
the only copy in the world. Don't drop it.
Jared's like, I want to play it.
So fucking happy right now.
Holy shit.
My
Is that the first F-bomb ever? They curse, but I've not heard an F-bomb before.
Sorry.
I love it.
Get it. Yeah, but I know it works. Did you burn it to a CD yourself, or did they make them?
You're not mic'd. We can't hear you. We can't.
We hear it.
Yeah, no. He's not mic'd, so you can't hear his question.
Sorry.
That's what we talked about. You can't introduce topics. We get in trouble.
Well, when you make PS2 games, not everyone's got a PlayStation 2 dev kit.
It pains me to realize how old CDRs have become. I saw a meme yesterday or the day before that was like somebody just distraught, and it said, when you realize that today kids talk, or like people talk about the 90s the same way as really old people talked about the 60s when we were kids. I don't know how old you are, Galaxica, and I'm not going to ask, but I'm 38, and that was a crime. That was a felony of a meme. That was terrible.
So if you've got
that
QA,
was terrible.
Burn
Burn a copy of the game.
Burn a copy of the game, and that'll be the game that week that QA will be using. Or
the early 90s was 30 years ago,
for them
people.
to evaluate and things like that. So, it's a bit of more of a manual process. And
Is this one that will play in a PS2, or will it need a PS2 dev kit?
probably a dev kit, but
How
I'm
crazy
going
is
to
that?
have a look.
Yeah.
At some
David?
Yeah.
Can we look on eBay for a PS2 dev kit?
Yeah.
Okay. It's work related, I promise.
They're quite pricey.
Yes.
Bone, that's it. That's all we have time. You survived. Thank you
well,
so much
thanks for inviting me.
for
That was really
taking
good.
the time.
That was one of the best
for hanging out
interviews.
with us.
That was awesome.
Folks watching at home or at work, or if you're like Captain Richard back in the day in your car on your lunch, 3.18.2 has just gone out to live servers with a lot of with more bug fixes and more optimizations for the gameplay experience. It's also
an
you can see
interesting
from
guy.
my internal chats here. It also helped us reveal a couple malicious queries on the back end and stuff, and the folks are working to fix that stuff up. So, like I said, half these things fix things, and half of these things reveal
you,
things
Moss.
that need to be fixed.
Thank you.
So that's currently underway. I understand there might be a Xeno threat sometime soon. I don't have any specific data.
It should be
Yeah.
very soon, right? A couple hours.
Yeah. Maybe we should leave them mic'd up next.
Remember though, anytime they say that it's a certain time, there's like this, like phase 1 is like this setup thing where it's not really live yet, right? So it's like announcing that it's about to happen, and then it happens. So I know people like tend to get really pissed off by that, but there's multiple phases, and the first phase is like, yo, things are about to happen. So thanks again, Moss, by the way.
So we'll talk about leaving them mic'd up. But there's a Xenothreat event happening sometime soon. Keep an eye out on the RobertSpaceIndustries.com website.
8 p.m.
socials,
UTC, 3 p.m. Central.
On that. And then remember, of course,
Pretty soon,
ISC returns from its quarterly hiatus next week with an episode dedicated entirely to the new Lorville that's coming online with the upcoming Alpha 319.
Nice.
You saw a little bit of it out the window today, and during our intermission, it looks amazing.
That was great.
The Montreal folks are just killing it, as are the folks in Frankfurt who worked on the lighting and the atmosphere. The light and the atmosphere really set this thing off now. The whole sky is like burned. It's so cool.
Nice.
It's so cool.
Cannot wait.
Check that out next week on ISC. For this show, Star Citizen Live, that was Ed. That was Elliot. This was Bone. I'm Jared. Take care, everybody. We'll see you all here next week.
Oh my God, that was like a Formula One intro or whatever with what's his name. But yeah, that was SCL. That was really good. That was a really good episode. I enjoyed that a lot. It was both interviews were really good, really informative, and Bone was like very interesting person, and that was cool, man. And an incredibly important work that he's doing too, because if anybody's been a backer for a really long time, they would understand just how bad and how slow the UI updates were. Everything was like, we would love to do that for you. We're waiting on UI. We would love to do that. We're waiting on UI. So to see that reputation, I think the priorities are right where they need to be. As bad as I would love reputation-based rewards. And yeah, just super excited for 319 and to play more 318. So awesome. Thanks for watching with me today, guys. That was fun.